So today I want to do a follow-up to a story I covered earlier this week. Teamsters Local 202, the union that represents its workers in the Bronx in New York City, who are on strike against Hunts Point Produce Market in a demand for higher wages, won. The union negotiated a beneficial contract that the workers overwhelmingly seemed to support. 97% of the workers voted in favor of the new contract. And I just want to say, first and foremost, congratulations to the workers. Congratulations to the union at successfully representing their workers. And honestly, the workers deserve way more than what they got. They are the backbone of New York City and they support the entire population, with 60% of the produce that comes into the city being distributed through this market. People eat because of them, and they worked hard through the pandemic. So congratulations. Thank you for your service to feeding an entire city in the United States and doing all the work that you do. With that said, I covered most of their story in a previous video, and I'm going to leave a link to that in the description below if you want to see more of the full story. I am going to try to make this as standalone as possible moving forward, but there might be some details that might be left out. So I want to cover this by looking at the new contract and what that entails compared to what was previously demanded. I want to talk about solidarity and how important solidarity is in terms of a struggle like this one. And then I want to talk about the presence of AOC being there and how important that was, not to take away from the workers as the forefront of this, but the fact that AOC setting a national stage ended up having a great benefit to the strike itself. And with that said, let's jump in and look at some of the details around things. So the original demand from the workers was an extra $1 an hour wage increase and for their health benefits to be covered, which in my opinion is more than fair, given that inflation has gone up over the past 3 years since their last contract, and they worked straight through the pandemic. Their jobs were protected by their union during the pandemic, so even more reason the union was important. But the fact that they worked through this pandemic and you had a number of people either, get COVID or die from it, I think that they deserved a lot more than $1 an hour raise. The company, of course, negotiated back with a 32-cent boost. The rest of the 90-cent agreement that they were offering was going to go towards health benefits. So they went on strike. And the new deal that was negotiated from this strike has the workers not getting $1 an hour right away, but 70 cents per hour in the first year. However, by the third year, that becomes $1.85 per year. So they lost a little bit in the first year, which kind of sucks because the company should really be able to pay the $1 an hour. But the fact that it goes up to $1.85 by the third year means that the majority of their workforce will be paid over $20 an hour by the end of this next contract. And that is a huge gain. Furthermore, the way that it's broken down is that it's 70 cents minimum increase per hour for the first year, an additional 50 cents an hour for the second year, and 65 cents more for the third year. And they will also receive a one-time bonus of $1,300 in 2023. Workers will continue to receive health coverage without having to have a pay increase, so the company is absorbing the cost of any health increases or anything of that sort, which was an issue with the negotiations, and that the workers will start going back to work as of Sunday when the contract takes effect. So the deal is not expected to be retroactive, so the days that they were not on the job will not be covered under the new contract. So that's, a really huge deal. Even though they didn't get the immediate goal of what they wanted, they were able to negotiate something that in the end ends up being even more beneficial, and I think that it was a worthwhile endeavor. Even the company says, "We are very pleased to have been able to negotiate a new contract that provides our workers with an over 10% increase in hourly wages and fringe benefits over the next 3 years." with an average annual increase just under 3 times the current cost of living increase. We feel this is a very fair and equitable deal. Which is funny because they said the same thing about their 32-cent increase, that they were giving a very fair deal and that the company couldn't really give more. Well, clearly they could. And so this is the power of a strike. This is the power of people banding together. And this is why labor is important and having unions is important. So going over what has transpired over the past few days and where we left off, I think is important. Where we last left off was that on the 19th, a bunch of workers, a handful of workers, got arrested when I had shown off a clip where I said approximately 100 police officers looked to be there to break up this strike. Well, it turns out that number was actually closer to 300 NYPD cops. I had a very limited scope, and I actually worried that I overestimated it in that moment. No, there were nearly 300 cops there to strike this down and to handle this situation on the 19th. So that's where we left off. On the 20th, the day of the inauguration, I was generally fearful that this was going to get buried under, Biden entering into office, that people were just going to ignore it, or this was just going to get, swept aside as one of those local stories. As a matter of fact, that's the exact opposite of what happened. People came out in support of the workers. And one of the people who did come out was actually AOC, who skipped the inauguration to be there. And she brought the Cafe Bustelo. She brought the hand warmers. She went out and bought stuff for people, and she was there, and she handed out pizza, and it was a whole to-do. And, she's been there, from what I'm understanding, at least the one day, but she might have come out a second day. I'm not sure, based on the timeline of Twitter posts and everything like that, exactly what days she was there, but she did come out at least once to support the union. And so some of the other moments that I think are worth looking at from all of this to represent the importance of solidarity in all this is this one moment where a locomotive engineer was told about the Teamster strike. And so let's take a look at that clip.
5 p.m. tonight, CSX trying to deliver 21 freight cars of merchandise into the Osprey Market. Our guys, our captains, our union guys came there, asked them to support our union. The locomotive engineer came out, saw them, said, we're Teamsters too, turned the freight car right back around, headed back to Ohio. Another victory, another day longer, another day stronger. We're going to get this contract come hell or high water. Thank you.
So with that is an incredible moment of solidarity, where you have a situation where the locomotive engineer who was delivering a bunch of the freights of vegetables heard about the Teamster struggle, was told about it by the union, and turned the train around and literally started heading back to Ohio with all the produce. So the union was able to come out and be supported not just from their own members and other local unions, but from the locomotive engineer who said, we're Teamsters too, and we're going to back you up. And so that level of solidarity gives more power, because if the market can't get its produce and doesn't have workers, what value does the market have? Its entire premise is that it's supposed to sell that produce out to the city. It covers 60% of New York City's produce. When you can't get the thing that you're supposed to sell and you don't have anyone to distribute it, you really don't have a business model. And it just goes to show the importance and the necessity of people in this whole struggle. And so another moment I want to show off is the moment in which they actually won. Because I think this is an important moment of celebration to talk about. So let's take a look at that one.
On for generations upon generations, because of what you did this past week. When you walk back into work on Monday or whatever day you walk back in, make certain you walk in there with your head high, and you make certain that these employers understand. They're just tenants in our house. Fight!
I love that line. they are just tenants in our house. The workers are the ones that make up the facility. The workers are the ones that make things happen. The people who run the company, they may own the means of production, they may own the facilities, and in this case, the city actually owns the land of the facility. The company actually just rents it on a really good deal and gets a huge subsidy for it from the city. The workers should really be in control, and Hunts Point Market is actually should be moving in the direction of actually being a proper workers' co-op. If I had my way, move in that direction where you've got that very socialistic understanding there, because the workers deserve a lot more than what they're getting even with this. But it's important, it is important across the board. And one more thing I want to point out is that a lot of people get the impression that strikes or protests or anything of that sort is supposed to be this boring endeavor where it's really harsh and very real. But I want to just show off the fact that sometimes it can just be a little bit of a celebration and bring out the local community and really unite people under that banner. So you have this right here. You've got music playing, you've got people, relaxing and talking and sharing information. That's part of the struggle too. Getting to know your coworkers a little bit better, getting to know people who are in other unions and in other stories, and just sharing in that experience. I think that's all key components to all of this. So again, people coming together is how this happened. The community came together and supported them. Other unions came and supported them. The locomotive engineer came and supported them. And on top of all that, AOC came out and supported them in a very big way. And I want to go over a couple of moments from her speech to the workers and talk about the interaction between her and the workers and some of the importance of the things that she said.
All of our essential workers, thank you.
Give it up.
Thank you. Just like Danny said, people started using this term essential worker this past year, but you have always been essential workers.
True.
Right. Everybody gotta eat every day.
True.
Every day. And so just like the hospital is essential to us, our food distribution is essential to us. It's a core. It's the base of our economy. We need nurses. We need people loading trucks. We need everybody, and we need you. And we gotta pay you like we need you, because we do. You are not replaceable. You are not expendable. You are valuable, and you are valued, and we love you. And just like Danny said, that's the solidarity of our actions that are going to get us through. It is sticking together.
So with that, I think there's a really important commentary there. A lot of times labor constantly hears how they're replaceable, how they're able to be just pushed to the side. No, labor is not replaceable. And the idea that they are in solidarity in that way, that a politician came down on the day of the inauguration, nonetheless, to support them is really huge. And the thing about AOC being there is that's not even her district. The representative of that district is actually Representative Richie Torres, who, represents New York 15. AOC actually represents 14, the neighboring district over in the Bronx. And so some of her constituents might have actually been at the protest, but she really didn't have to be there because this strike was not in her jurisdiction directly. So say what you will, she really didn't have to be there. And the thing I also want to point out is with her presence there, no cops showed up to stop things. No cops showed up to break things down. And she actually demanded that lawmakers come out and provide federal mediators for what happened and the abuse of law that happened. When you have a politician there, it can actually make your strike easier. And yes, I know there's a lot of calls about how certain things can be just photo ops and all this other stuff. I don't think that's what's going on in this case. I really don't. I think that there's an important understanding that by presenting this and bringing it up to a national stage, you end up giving the workers more power. And by calling for that federal mediator into the situation, Cuomo ended up, the governor of New York, ended up reaching out and actually calling for people to get back to the table and supported the union on some level. The president of the union actually thanked him on Twitter. And so I think that's an important understanding that they might have gotten a better negotiated contract because of AOC's presence there. We need to have local on the ground leaders doing that sort of thing. And so one last set of remarks I want to go over from AOC, and then we can wrap up.
Demanding better working conditions, demanding an end to poverty, demanding an end to war, demanding a better material and just outcomes for all people in the United States.
This right here is why I do what I do.
That's
Right
right.
here. This is why I do what I do.
That's an important thing. And I love this about when you get strikes and protests like this. Somebody's always going to talk about why they did what they did. And it just brings people together because everybody has a moment where they can connect with that, even if they can't feel it themselves. The idea that this person's coming out and saying the reason I do this is because of my kid, my baby. Everyone in that crowd has a similar person of why they're doing this, why they're fighting, why they're struggling. And it brings people together. And I just want you to watch that as this unfolds in the way that it does.
This is why I'm out here. Right here.
No, too, that you're not just standing up for that baby. You're standing up for babies all across this country. Because just like there are workers here, there are workers, food workers in every pocket of the United States who deserve more than $1. Who deserve more than a raise. They deserve health
True.
care. They deserve justice. They deserve good working worker rights. And that's what we're here to fight for today. So I want you all to know that when you're standing on this line, you're not just asking for $1. You are asking for transformational change for your lives and for the lives of every food worker across this country, for kids of food workers across this country.
True.
But there's a lot of things upside down right now in our economy. And one of those things that's upside down, sorry, it's cold out. One of those things that's upside down is the fact that a person who is helping get the food to your table cannot feed their own kids.
Ain't that ridiculous? When you really put it in that perspective, someone who's trying to get food to your table can't afford to feed their own kids. That's ridiculous. That's a broken system. And I'm glad that she's pointing that out. I'm glad she's talking about how upside down things are. And you know what? That right there, that's the perspective of a leftist. She might be guising it in certain terms, to make it more palatable in certain ways, but that's the core of this union and labor process. That is a leftist perspective, that the entire system is flipped on its head, that the people who work the hardest are the people who are being most left behind.
That's upside down. The fact that someone who can help you get care or help deliver your groceries can't even get health care themselves or can't even get access to those things themselves.
That ain't right.
That's not right. That's upside down. And so what we're doing here today is taking the upside down and making it right side up.
Absolutely true. And so that in and of itself is a huge boost in terms of the way things are, right? Her pointing all this stuff out. It's this back and forth between the community and a grassroots elected politician right now. And this is what I think should be being represented when we have this. So in conclusion of all this, is the contract enough at the end of the day? Is it the ultimate leftist goal that we want, and everything like that? Should these people be getting paid a lot more? Should they be getting a lot more? Yes, absolutely. But this is a small victory, and I think we should celebrate that. And I think that we have to acknowledge the fact that having people bring this to a national stage like AOC did is a benefit, and highlighting the workers and highlighting their struggle, and the fact that they're doing it for their kids, they're doing it for their neighbors, the community came out together, other workers came out in support of them, and the combination of it all led to a contract that ended up giving them more than what they originally demanded by the third year. They worked hard. They continue to work hard, and they're working through really rough conditions in the pandemic. I wish them all the best, and I just want to say that we should all be in solidarity and celebrate this type of situation. With that said, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button and bell for notification. You can follow me on Twitter and check out my Discord in the description down below. My name is Anarchist Tara, and I hope you enjoyed watching.